particular video, I'm going to be modeling for you how to do the genre set analysis that you'll need to do for your VoiceThread presentation. So with that particular presentation, you want to sort of think in rough drafts. This is where you're going to be sort of working through the ideas that you've learned from the genre theory articles that you've read in the class. We have read the Kane and Wardle article that defines activity theory, as well as the genres of Chi Omega. And so with these particular articles, they talk about genre as responses to reoccurring social situations. Genres basically shape our actions and activities, and it shapes the way we communicate with each other. It shapes discourse and language. Also relevant to our thinking are the two videos that we watched as a class, so the one about genre theory as well as discourse communities. Argentine Tango is a complex bass activity system that is made up of multiple communities worldwide. So every city has a tango community, and within a particular city you may have multiple tango communities. Each community will have its own social norms, culture, its own rules, and so forth. So there's no sort of universal set of norms for Argentine tango. Within this, I wanted to look at a more specific problem, and that was the problem of inclusivity and exclusivity and the ways in which racial and gender discrimination marginalize particular dancers. The genres I want to focus in on are the genres of the social media post within Facebook, because Facebook is the primary space in which tango organizers are communicating with each other, promoting all of their events. I also wanted to look at one particular Facebook group called the Tango for Social Justice, and within that group they have other genres like YouTube videos as well as announcements and posts. And last, I'm going to be looking at a particular announcement through an email listserv. So I will demonstrate for you sort of how members and organizers are using these spaces in order to educate people about gender bias and racial bias within the Argentine Tango community. However, because of the sort of nature design of social media, having the types of conversations in which one needs to educate themselves to develop self-awareness, empathy, and compassion isn't ideal. And from my analysis, I discover, in fact, it only encourages more exclusivity, more marginalization. So I'm going to look at a Facebook post that was posted right after the murders of the Asian women at the massage parlor. So with this initial post, a black male dancer who's a prominent dancer in the community, he's an organizer, owns his own dance school, he shared a post about his frustrations about racism in America and how now Asian Americans are being targeted. And he had to edit his post. So this is a feature of Facebook. It does allow, by clicking on the three dots up here, you can revise and edit. And due to the conversation that followed, 243 comments, he had to post that he needed to delete inappropriate comments because it was becoming more partisan. She is a white female, and at first she expresses her sympathy. I'm sorry, but this is not the same thing at all the way I see it. So she is trying to admit this is her position. Please share what makes you think his crime was racial. I had interpreted this as a moment of vulnerability. Perhaps she wanted to actually learn from him, a black male, how in fact this particular crime is racial. But instead what followed was this sort of nasty conversation between her and others in the community, either siding with her or vehemently disagreeing with her. And so nothing was basically gained from this conversation other than splitting dancers apart, where dancers later commented that they would not support her events or attend any of her events. I had participated in the conversation, playing the role of educator, trying to educate people about Asian American discrimination in this country and accomplished little other than a few likes on my post. And so what I did instead was reach out to her. I shared with her a resource, and with that resource also commented that she could collaborate with that other organizer in order to host diversity training seminars at her tango school. The Philadelphia Argentine Tango School is located in Philadelphia, and they host these lectures every Wednesday. And so they had an event on restorative justice. The challenging thing about this particular genre is that it's a closed system. You have to be a member of this community or asked to be part of their listserv. Unless you are friends with this particular organizer in Facebook or part of various Facebook groups, one would never receive these updates. Also, these particular events cost money. Although they're relatively inexpensive, it's not free. Within Facebook, there is a private group. So this is within this particular discourse community. One can enter it, but it has to be approved by the administrators. So it's not as easily accessible. One can do a simple search within Facebook. So within this community, they often post various lectures, videos, and articles and information about discrimination, racism. Also shared on that Facebook group was a Zoom discussion on Blackness in tango. And so this was a 2-hour-long discussion amongst these Black dancers, which is phenomenal because there's an opportunity to hear from actual dancers what they were going through. However, as you can see, it has only received 129 views after nearly a year in circulation, and only 2 people have liked it. And so the materials and information is out there about discrimination and bias in the tango community, but within this particular activity system, different communities are not communicating with each other. Consequently, you have a more disconnected or detached activity system, even though we are all traveling and attending each other's events, which would appear like we are connected. Okay, so let me quickly review. I started with my activity system. I wanted to narrow in on a particular community regarding the problem of discrimination and bias within Argentine tango. And so the spaces in which people have been using to communicate this problem have been Facebook. So I looked at particular conversations around this. Also looked at YouTube as well as a article in Medium, and as well as an announcement in my email listserv. I do want to stress that this type of analysis is different than the research that I did to better understand the problem. So that's for my literature review. So these are articles that I retrieved from our library website, and so this provides more of that historical context regarding Blackness in Argentine tango, as well as whitewashing in Argentine tango. So these are articles that I will summarize and synthesize when writing the introduction and when describing the problem issue within tango. But the genre analysis itself, the genres I've chosen to analyze, to talk about how and where these conversations are happening and what is coming about from it, I selected Facebook as well as the YouTube video and the Medium article.